Hi, everybody. I hope everybody is having a good morning so far. Um, I'm back at the studying. Um, and yesterday, if you saw my short video yesterday, I started for like 15 minutes and then I realized one of my favorite creators was going live, so I hopped off. But I'm going to just pick back up where I left off yesterday. And feel free to let me know in the chat how you found me, if you have any questions about law school. Sorry if my throat sounds a little scratchy. I woke up with a little bit of a sore throat today. But today we are going to be talking about civil procedure, and procedure just refers to literally like the steps that the procedure you take in court. So I think of it as like the mechanical things. So it's like, when do you file something? When can you plead something? What has to be in your filing? Those types of things, what court you go to. Um, all of those things are what we're going to go over today for civil cases. Um, and then I have to do the same thing, but for criminal cases, because there are two different sets of rules for criminal and for civil cases. Okay, so yesterday, I didn't get through much, but we started talking about federal question jurisdiction, and that's when you end up in federal court because the claim that you're suing for involves a federal issue. When we talk about a federal issue, that's going to be something that comes like directly from the Constitution or like a law that Congress has passed federally. Um, and if it necessarily raises substantially disputes, I forget the other ones right now. Actually disputes is substantial, and if he is capable of resolving, I said that I mixed up two things there. But the first thing I said, if it involves a federal issue, meaning something from the Constitution or passed by Congress, federal law, then in general ends up in federal court. It can also end up in federal court if it involves people or things from different states. So if you have plaintiff and defendants in different states, or you have different states suing each other, or any combination of different states, you'll be in federal court if the amount of controversy is over $75,000. So when do they decide when you're in different states? So I mean, do you have to be a resident in different states when the car accident happened or whatever it is, or is it when it's filed? The diversity, which just means difference, um, the diversity needs to exist when the complaint is filed. So diversity must exist when complaint is filed. Got it. Okay. And so, there are three cases where you may have plaintiffs and defendants in the same states. So, okay, so you can have one plaintiff and one defendant. Diverse. Then other parties can be the same state in these actions. Okay, so while diversity jurisdiction to be in federal courts typically requires the plaintiff and defendant to be from different states. If you have more than one plaintiff, or if you have more than one plaintiff, it's okay if some of the plaintiffs are from the same state as the defendant. Just one plaintiff needs to be from a different state than a defendant. But that doesn't apply all the time. It applies in 3 types of cases, and those are going to be interpleader, which is when you bring in another party. So you say like, hey, this person needs to be brought into our lawsuit. I think that's what that means, if I remember right. Interpleader and Class Action Fairness Act, and in interstate mass torts, 75 or more dead people, like airplane crash. Let me just do this, mass torts. Okay, and for corporation, you have to consider every single place the corporation has citizenship. Okay. So a corporation is the citizen of every state where it's incorporated. So if they filed their where they filed their business documents, and where it has its principal place of business. Okay. I think I'm going to keep going. There's a little bit more I could write, but I'm going to keep going. Okay, so now how do you know if it is over $75,000? Plaintiff must make good faith claim. That damages exceed 75K. And when can you add things together? So let's say you're suing for multiple things. When can you add the damages? You may aggregate claims when you have one plaintiff and one defendant. And this is to get into federal courts. So you have to have over $75,000. You have to be from different states. You have to have one plaintiff. So you can aggregate the claims as one plaintiff and one defendant. When it's single versus multiple defendants. Oh my gosh, I'm having trouble spelling. Multiple defendants jointly liable. and multiple plaintiffs against single defendant if P's have common interest. Okay, so when can you aggregate claims? You can aggregate your claims to reach the $75,000 requirement for an amount in controversy when there's only one plaintiff and one defendant, when there's one plaintiff and multiple defendants who are jointly liable, and when there are many plaintiffs against one defendant and the plaintiffs have a common undivided interest, which means like they have the same claim. Excuse me. Okay. And okay, let's talk about counterclaims. So, it doesn't include counterclaims. And counterclaims are when someone sues you, so you sue them back, and then just stays in the same case. Hey, Chelsea, I gave up on corporations. Yeah. I was like, this is like an alone time studying thing, so I switched to Civ Pro. I don't know how you do that. My brain was getting so muddled with the different types of stock. I was like, I need to be like in the quiet alone to do this. So counterclaims don't get counted to get into federal court. And permissive counterclaims must meet the $75,000, but okay, well, duh. Okay, but not a compulsory one. Okay. Okay, so when can things change? So if you are in state court, when would you be eligible? Well, let me do it this way. Things that impact diversity. Diversity just means from different states. Assigning your claims. So sometimes like if like you have a lawsuit against someone who like you think is going to pay out, you can assign like that claim to someone else. Let's say like you owe a debt, you can be like, you can just take whatever money I get. So if you assign claim, if you fail to name indispensable parties, voluntary change of citizenship, and you can do that on purpose to end up in federal court. And replacement of parties. So if you end up dropping a party and replacing it with another. Okay. So we talked about what did we talk about? We talked about federal question jurisdiction. So you end up in federal court if it involves something underneath the Constitution or something that Congress passed. You end up in federal court if it involves people from different states and the amount in controversy is over 75,000. Okay. Now, what happens when you have a lot of different claims and you're trying to get into federal court? Because sometimes it doesn't make sense to split your time between federal court and state court. It just, especially if the claims are like related. So that's where supplemental jurisdiction comes in. And this is in federal court. Okay. So, if Fed court has subject matter, I'm going to capitalize this because it'll just stand out more. JX, and JS just means jurisdiction, may have jurisdiction also over claims that share common nucleus of operative fact. And the reason I'm typing it in quotation marks is because in law, there's like terms of art, and they're kind of like magic phrases that you have to say, and this is one of the magic phrases. Like the Luigi case is both federal and state. Yeah, and that case is crazy too, because I feel like they were fighting over it for a while. So I'm very interested to see like which I'm very interested to see how the prosecutions are different in federal and state. The additional claims. Okay. So do do do. Okay, if court has federal question, no, sorry. Yes, federal question jurisdiction. Okay, it may have jurisdiction over claims if that have a common nucleus of operative fact. If the court has diversity jurisdiction, so it's not because the lawsuit comes out of the Constitution, it's because they're from different states. You have to have the common nucleus test. And something else. Um, if the common nucleus, why am I forgetting this? And the claim, oh, got it. And the claims are, and claims not from existing plaintiffs. Well, existing plaintiffs against persons. Why don't they just say third? Okay, sorry. Existing plaintiffs against third added parties. Parties not from or people compulsorily joint or seeking to intervene. Okay. Ooh. I really liked this class my first year of law school. Ooh, I'm not enjoying it so much right now. But it's just because it's so many rules. Procedure is really, really hard to remember. Okay, I got it. I think that's way more than I need. All right, so let me go back over it. Okay, so Chelsea, federal is really clean though because of all the rules. That is very true. I really, I like worked in a firm that was in a different state than where my law school was, and like learning the state court rules was so annoying. And yeah, I like the states that also just stick closely to like the federal rules. But I mean, obviously I like that just because it's easier to remember. Um, okay, got it. Okay, let's talk about removal jurisdiction. So that is when you are removing a case from state court to federal court. Okay, so I don't want to do this. Okay, so I'm going to say you have to file a notice of removal within 30 days of receiving the pleading, and all defendants must consent. Okay. And notice of removal and remand, I guess, have to be both filed within 30 days of receiving pleading or removal. Okay. And diversity can only be removed if defendant is not a citizen of forum state. So what that means is if you're trying to get into federal court because you are from different states, you can do it only if the defendant is not from the state you are suing in. Oh, that's right. Because, yes. Got it. Which we'll learn more about why later. Okay. I'm good with that for now. And then we'll go to personal jurisdiction. Okay. So this is when a court can, well, how do you decide what court the person is going to be brought to? Or more, how they decide the court you'll be brought to. So there's 3 ways you can give personal jurisdiction to the court. 3 ways courts can get personal jurisdiction. And they need jurisdiction. Jurisdiction just means being able to like hear the claim and do the trial. You can do it expressly. You could do it impliedly or voluntarily. Okay. So if someone brings you to court, and you don't want to be there, you must object to it. Must object to personal jurisdiction. So if you want to say, hey, this lawsuit, like, it should be dismissed because this, like, you don't have the power to hear it. In pre-answer motion or in the defendant's answer. Okay. Otherwise waived. So if you just start filing things with the court and don't object to the jurisdiction before you start any or before you raise any issues in the court, then you are waiving personal jurisdiction. So if you start just acting like, okay, it's all right for me to be here, the court has control over me, the court's going to assume that you decided it's fine for them to hear it. Okay. Now, when would a court have personal jurisdiction? This comes under the due process clause of the Constitution. So due process requires minimum contacts. I remember this. The shoes. Okay. Requires minimum contact with the state. And jurisdiction would be fair and reasonable. Okay. All right. So let's talk about in personam jurisdiction. Okay. So that is the power over an individual party. And the way I think about this is like this is the one that's mostly about like geography in a way. So when can you have in personam jurisdiction? It can be voluntary or by domicile. Okay. So meaning voluntarily, like you present yourself to the court and you have been served with process. So like served with your suits. Unless, yeah, I'll say that. So if you're voluntarily present before the court or your domicile, so meaning where your residence is. And that is the place you reside with intent to remain indefinitely. And that can get messy sometimes because people will say, well, I was planning to move to Texas. And then you start arguing about like what state they're actually supposed to be in court in. And the reason people argue about that is because some people want to be in federal court where there's better rules for some, better rules depending which side you're on. And some states have better rules depending which side you're on. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Yeah. Okay. You can give consent so expressly, which just means like explicit, expressly by contract, impliedly through conduct. So that's when you start like engaging with the court as if they do have jurisdiction over you, without objecting to it. And then voluntarily by appearing. Got it. Okay. So, some states have the ability to exercise jurisdiction over people who are out of state. So, like for some, let's say, like for some, I don't know exactly, but let's say like you have some type of like car accident or some type of like I don't know, roller coaster accident or I don't know, something in a state that you don't live in. There could be a law that says like for this type of I'm not saying crime because this is civil court, but for this type of like harm, um it harms our state, so we can reach out and grab you from wherever you are and bring you into court here because you did it here. Okay, yeah. So, or you can have, those are called long arm statutes, which just is exactly what it sounds like. The state has a really long arm. Oh, what happened with Amber Heard, Chelsea? Which part is like Amber Heard? I only followed the crazy testimony, but I didn't pay attention to any of the procedure. Oh, is that how she ended up in Virginia? Maybe, yeah, maybe that's what you meant. You could let me know. And long-arm statutes or minimum contacts with the state if property is attached. Because wasn't it, yes, sort of, because what was it, the newspaper was in Virginia, right? And Johnny, well, now I'm trying to think of how it would work. You might know. Johnny sued the newspaper, and then Amber Heard got pulled in. Yeah, something like that. You can let me know. There's also a countersuit by Johnny Depp, and they ran both cases simultaneously. It's really pretty amazing. I'll have to go back and look at that. Actually, because that was before I went to law school, so I didn't I wouldn't, I mean, I still don't really understand, but I didn't, I understood a lot less then. Um, so I'll have to go back and look at that, because I love the cases where it is really complicated, where you have people like doing like counterclaims and cross claims and stuff. Like the Karen Reed case. Oh my gosh, I actually can't even keep up with that civil case because there's just too much going on with those cross claims and parties. It's too much. That's like a civil procedure. That's a good civil procedure exam, that Karen Reed case. um, okay. So what does it mean for minimum context to be met? That happens when through purposeful availment and purposeful availment where contact with the state so purposeful and substantial, defendant should reasonably anticipate being okay. It could be reasonably anticipated to end up in court there. Okay. This is like ringing some bells. Okay, so what type of contacts? If you have if the action arises out of or closely relates to the contacts, then it gets the court gets specific jurisdiction. If the action is not related to the contacts within the state, then it is general jurisdiction. Okay. And then you have to ask, if it would jurisdiction offend traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice. Okay. All right, let me go back over. No, okay, yeah. So, all right. So for in personam jurisdiction, which is a type of personal jurisdiction. Um, you can get it by being voluntarily present before the court or by being domiciled in that state, or by contracting explicitly consenting to appear. You could also be pulled in and have in personam jurisdiction exercised if there's a long arm statute that can grab you from whatever state you are in. And long arm statutes typically govern harms that occur like within the state or affect the people or citizens of the state. Like the state has an interest in making sure you come back to their state. Or you have minimum contacts. Depending on what type of case and contacts they are, you'll end up with different types of jurisdiction. If there was purposeful availment, what was the words that were so substantial and purposeful that you could foresee being brought into court there, then the minimum context test will be applied. If the cause or the lawsuit relates to the contacts that you have in the state, then the court has specific jurisdiction over you. If the action is not related to the contacts you have in the state, but you have have continuous contacts or domiciled in that state, then the court will have general jurisdiction. And then after you determine the minimum contacts, you still have to ask if it would offend the traditional notions of fair play and substantial justice for the court to exercise jurisdiction over this party, meaning keeping the party in this specific court. All right. I'll deal with those later. For corporations, have continuous and systematic contacts in the state that will make the corporation or give the courts general jurisdiction. Okay. Now, what about when they are bringing you to court over things? So not because of something that you did, but like a piece of property. So you could have in rem jurisdiction and quasi in rem. All right, I do remember this from property. So in rem jurisdiction, concerns property, real, which is like land or like houses. Well, land. Yeah, and houses, and personal property. It must satisfy requirements for personal jurisdiction. So the requirements that I went over, the different ways that you can purposely avail yourself for personal jurisdiction. And the property must be present, must satisfy requirements of personal jurisdiction and be present within the state. Okay. That's in rem and quasi in rem. is when you're not dealing with the actual property, but the interest in the property. So like who owns how much of the property. So defendant, well, property owner must have sufficient minimum contacts for, well, that's just the same, right? Must also, I'll just say this, must also have. Okay. So if you are suing over a physical piece of property, real property or personal, the property has to meet, you have to meet the requirements for personal jurisdiction and be present. The property has to be within the state. If it's quasi and rem, quasi meaning like kinda, because it's not about the actual property, it's about who owns how much of it or when they own it. That also has to satisfy the minimum contacts. No, not also, but it has to satisfy the minimum contacts. In rem, does not. The property just has to be located in the state and it will be settle all the rights and claims. Okay. I hate this already. Thank you guys for being here with me. Whoever the two who are hanging out, God bless you. Okay. Okay, we talked about jurisdiction. Now let's talk about venue. Do I want to talk about venue? I think my brain needs a break. I'm going to take a little break. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll go for a walk. But I'll probably be on later, probably sooner. But thanks, you guys, so much for keeping me company and hanging out. Like it feels so much better to do it with someone. So thanks so much. I'm going to, maybe I'll go eat something and clear my head and then come back. And then I will go on to venue and pleadings. So venue being what district? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm talking a little bit to myself, but I will see you guys on the flip side. Please come back if I go live because it helps to have people. I hope you have a good afternoon, a good break, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Bye.